And welcome to the Howard Eskin Show. It's a show. I always have fun doing these shows, but I know with some of the things I'm sure will come up. We're going to have fun tonight with an old friend and a very, very talented guy, funny as hell, and that would be Craig Carton. But before we get into all that, let me tell you what's really important is the presenter of this show, and he is a stud when it comes to what he does. Stillwell Financial Advisors, Jeff Stillwell, the presenting. He presents the Howard Eskin Show. He's a big part of it. He knows what he's doing. He can help you invest your wealth. He's given me some really great ideas and great things, but you too can be impressed as I was. 732-343-0813, Jeff Stillwell. Also, the other sponsors of this show are really, really, really important. And there they are. Cut the Cord with Jason, Piazza Property Pros, and Audi of Westchester. Audi Westchester. Right now, you can lease a new 2025 Audi A3 Quattro, $439 a month. Only $439 a month, or a new 2025 Audi A5 Sportback for only $529 a month. All you need. $2,500 down plus taxes and registration fees to lease the new 2025 Audi A3 Quattro or the Audi A5 Sportback for 36 months, 7,500 miles. Stop by Audi Westchester. You want to have a fun experience? You will have a fun. Who doesn't have fun looking for a car? 1421 Wilmington Pike. Don't wait. The special offer will not last long. The Audi A3 for $439 a month, or the 2025 Audi A5 Sportback, $529 a month. Check them out, AudiWestchester.com. Also, and you've waited a little too long to build a pool, but you might need some maintenance on your pool or need some landscaping. Piazza Property Pros can do that for you. And that's because with 25 years of experience, they don't subcontract, they do it themselves. They know their stuff. I mean, the pools, I've seen some of the photographs of the pools and the landscaping, but the pools that they've built are amazing. Top-notch craftsmanship. Their people, whether it's landscaping, fencing, whatever it is, pool maintenance, Piazza Property Pros. Here's a number, 610-566-2608. Schedule a free consultation. That's 610-566-2608, or check them out at piazzaoutdoor.com. And you're tired of paying all those stinking cable bills. You're tired of overpaying? Well, you can have less of a bill with Cut the Cord with Jason. Jason offers an incredible service. He'll save you money on your monthly TV and internet bill. Here's what people who've hired Jason had to say. I saw Cut the Cord, and that's Mike L. I saw Cut the Cord with Jason on Howard Show. After years of wanting to get rid of cable TV, I finally did it. Jason came to my house, explained everything, set up the home screen to what we needed, and even hooked up my sound bar in the basement. Jason was awesome. Mike L. from the Northeast loves Cut the Cord with Jason. For more information and to save you lots of money, call Jason 215-801-5858. That's 215-801-5858. And tonight on the show, there will be so many things of brilliance from Craig Carton. I'm going to ask a question after we're done, and you can win a pair of Oakley sunglasses by submitting the answer to my website before we're on again on Saturday. And the Oakley sunglasses will be yours. I mean, it's pretty easy. Just listen. When I ask the question, you can submit it to my website, and out of the correct answers, we will come up with a winner before the show on July 12th, 8 a.m. You can see us live on X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can subscribe. You're notified when we're on. Winner will be randomly chosen from the correct entries. All right. He is one of the more, I really do think this, and not because I really think a lot of the guy and like the guy as a friend. I think he's so talented. When I talk to people, I say he's pretty sharp, he's pretty good, and he's really funny. And right now, Craig Carton on FS1 Breakfast Ball mornings from, what is it, 8 to 10.
Huh? What?
Can I say you're one of the more talented guys in the business? Am I lying if I say that?
Yeah, that's why I keep getting employed.
Yeah, what
Like
are
every
people
Tom,
thinking?
Dick, and Harry's got a podcast or show or something on social media, but it's only a very select few of us that keep getting employed on major radio stations and TV networks coast to coast. So I appreciate the intro. I'm hoping to win the Oakley glasses. I'm gonna have my pool fixed by the other guy. I'm gonna meet Mike L. We can talk about cutting the cord together, and I'm gonna get an Audi Quattro, so I'm all good.
You get it all. Why not? You just good. Just run down the list. Now you mentioned the business,
Yeah,
and obviously you've been in the business for a while. I've been in the business for a while,
yeah,
and I did a podcast the other day, and I didn't know that the question that was brought up, and I like that. I like to be spontaneous
yeah,
and respond. Real and natural is what it's all about.
yeah.
But the radio business, I just don't think sports talk. The radio business is not the same anymore, and they're struggling with the way they operate their business model, and that's why podcasts are becoming more and more successful. And I know you're on FS1, and it's on
Yeah.
it. You know, I get it on Direct TV. I see it
Let
on
me
Direct
stop you there.
TV.
I don't know that they don't know how to operate the business. Here's what I have. Look, like you, I'm a radio lifer. I'm a radio geek. I love radio. I love sports talk radio. Um, and my biggest issue with sports talk radio is there's a couple things. Number one, I think the far majority of hosts are completely lazy and do not put the work in that you put in coming up in the business, the work that I put in, the pride we had in our type of performance. You and I did different types of shows, obviously, but it required work. It required effort. It required watching games, crafting an opinion. How am I going to sell that opinion? And it bothers me to my core that the far majority, and I mean like 90%, the far majority of sports talk show hosts that I listen to and check out have no pride in what they put out on the radio. And they show up and hope that there was a big moment in last night's game so they can riff on what everyone's talking about. But if there wasn't a big moment last night, they're screwed. If you do a show in July in any major market where it's kind of a dead month sports wise,
Yep.
waiting for football to start again, they don't know how to do a compelling show. So I'm bothered as a professional who takes great pride in the word show and trying to put on a show that very few radio performers do that. A, B, I don't know, like in the heyday of WIP and certainly at WFAN, two places I worked, obviously,
Yep.
there were shows, yours was one of them, where like him or don't like the host, you were afraid to miss what he or she was going to say next and what might happen next. And I don't know that there's a show, respectfully, on either station or coast to coast where the audience is like, man, I can't miss that show tomorrow because something awesome is going to happen. And that bothers me. And then the third thing is, I do think the advent of social media and podcasts and TikTok and Instagram has robbed radio of the next generation of radio stars. So there's no threat to the guys that are doing major market drive time radio that a 25-year-old kid's coming up who's going to take their job. That kid no longer exists.
You know what? I made a point that I don't think hosts are as talented
Yeah,
because they think they can just, as kind of what you alluded to, they can just do it and everything's okay. And we'll just, and the reason I remember working solo and I was number one in the market doing it by myself on AM radio back in the day
yeah,
when I first did the show and started it in '86 at WIP. But they have co-hosts, and I believe they brought. And you work with. I know you work with somebody all the time, and you work on FS1. You work.
yeah,
You have a co-host,
yep,
but you drive the train, and Boomer understood that.
yeah,
And I'm sure he was great at that when you worked with Boomer.
yeah,
You were driving the train, and he knew when he could fit in. But nowadays, it's like it's good cop, bad cop. Well, you take this side, I'll take
yeah.
this side, and whether they believe it or not. And I think people kind of see through that after a while. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree, but I put it in different words. We've gotten to a point now where radio hosts are so worried about clicks on their social media account that every day of the week it's the sky is falling. Let me come up with a crazy opinion that I don't even do a good job selling because I know it's going to go viral. And that might be great on a random Wednesday. But when your entire act is, you suck, this guy sucks, I'm going to say something totally outlandish for attention, it works in the short term, sure. People check it out, people digest it. But if that's the only act you got, like the sky isn't falling every single day. And unfortunately, that's everybody's act. Let me yell and scream, make some shit up, make it like that's all I know how to do. And I think that wears very thin very quickly.
You know, when you worked, and I'll say FAN, which was different than WIP. I mean, things in the business change, and people say. And I think you got along with Chris Olivero, who ran the
Yeah.
whole machine. I think he was. I used to come up and talk to him twice a week. I think he's a great idea guy.
Yep.
Now I don't know if you have people in the management position, the positions that are great idea guys to come up with the things that really work. I just don't see that as much anymore.
Well, I think it's kind of a poo poo platter. He's still the greatest and most brilliant mind as an executive in all radio, and he's still at
Yeah,
WFAN and works for Odyssey and oversees I think all their programming now as he should.
right.
But I look, you have inexperienced producers, you have program directors who don't respect talent, you have talent that don't put the work in, and the product has suffered for it. It used to be you put the work in and look, you can let's use WIP because you're a Philly guy. Whether it's Steve and Mike, which was one of the great duo afternoon shows, I think, in Philadelphia history. I'm not a huge fan of Angelo's, but what Angelo did for almost 30 years, is awesome. Your career, both with a partner, without a partner, awesome. But the one thing all you guys had in common, and I think I had in common as well, is the work ethic is you can't just show up and hope that something big happened last night and talk about it for 4 hours. And I was just telling my kids at dinner that the one thing, among others, that I always respected about you, and you did something that's impossible to do, and pardon this word here, you decided you were going to be the contrarian. And for lack of a better word, you were going to be the asshole. But you know what? You went to, and by the way, it ain't easy to do that because you got to be unwavering in that regard. And the one thing I always respected about you and took from you, because when I first got to WIP, I was what, 23 years old? I had done 7 months in Buffalo, a year in Cleveland, and now bang, all of a sudden I'm doing nights in the sixth largest, fourth largest market in America. And I
Hmm.
wanted to pattern what I did after successful host nationwide. You showed up at every game. So if you took a pot shot at a player,
Oh
you didn't
yeah,
hide behind the microphone.
no.
You went into the locker room, and there was the risk somebody might punch you in the face. And
Hey,
I
wait a
always
minute. I had
respected that.
threats. I had threats.
Yeah,
I mean, I can go down a list of people that wanted to kick the
yeah.
living
Jim
daylights out
Fregosi loves you, right?
of Mitch Williams, Fregosi. I mean, you can go
Yeah.
down a list.
But there's something to be said about a guy that has a big mouth, says a lot of stuff, and then backs it up by showing up.
Yeah, and well, I think it was important if you're going to take a shot. The guy I call them hit and run drivers. They hit and they run, and
Yeah.
you never see them.
You know, who was a guy like that? I mean, a no talent hack who would say things and then run back to his home and never be seen at a sporting event. Your favorite guy, Glenn Magnow. Yeah,
You know what? You had to bring that up, but
yeah.
okay. So
What a waste of space
I'm
that
going
guy
to
is.
connect. I'm going to
Ugh.
connect some of the dots here.
Yeah,
I'm going to connect some of the dots.
yeah,
The last time we spoke on the air, you just celebrated your 10th anniversary with Boomer on mornings, and you had a party at the Borgata.
yep, yep,
So I'm on the next morning. You're partying all night.
yeah.
And
I
you
didn't go to
walk
bed that
by the
night. That's right.
you walk by the front counter. I say, "Hey, Craig, come on for a few minutes." I
Yeah.
don't know. We did a half an hour. We did 40 minutes. I don't know what we did. Obviously, you remember that, right?
Yeah, I remember it for a lot of reasons. One, I didn't go to bed. Two, I lost $300,000 that night, and three, I was wandering around the hotel because I couldn't go to sleep, and I was trying to figure out my next move, and then I hear you on the radio, and I was like, well, that's one way to pass 45 minutes of time. But yeah, that was actually, and I was, look, I got in trouble pretty, shortly after that. When we celebrated our 10th anniversary at Borgata, I DJ'd at the club that night. I played drums at the B bar that night. I had a great night until I lost, all that money playing blackjack. And I distinctly remember, that was one of the last things I did before I got in trouble. Was going on with you live from Borgata. Yeah.
Do you remember what the subject matter was?
Well, I mean, some of it was my dislike for Glenn McNow. Yeah.
you know, you know,
Let me just
you
tell
know
you
what?
why.
He
Let me tell
went
you
and
why.
cried to the program
Um,
director that you did that.
I know he went and cried to Spike or whoever he
Whoever it
cried
was.
to. Why do you let him on the air? He's so mean to me. I'll tell you why I'm mean to him. Because right after Valentine's Day, there was a Friday afternoon, and I was filling in, I guess, either for you or for Steve Fredericks. I forget who's doing afternoons with Mike Missinelli at the time. And we were doing it live from a Slacks Hoagie Shack somewhere in southern New Jersey. And
Right.
I came out and I said, the whole thing about Lindros missing the game, for this, that, the other. And nothing came of it. No one said anything about it. It just, the weekend came up all good. And then that rat weasel on Monday called up Angelo and Al in the morning and said, by the way, did you hear what Carton said on Friday about Eric Lindros? Can you believe that? We should get it. And basically, a big fat rat that he was, try to make a name for himself. And the thing that pissed me off was he goes, I called the Flyers and they said it's not true. It never happened. Like their word was the gospel. And we know historically the late Ed Snyder and that regime lied about everything having to do with Eric at the time. And then obviously the whole thing blew up, blah, blah, blah. And 6 months later, I left to be syndicated out of Florida on Sports Fan Network. And it pissed me off so much because he never had the class or the courtesy to call me. And it was a flippant remark I made on a Friday, and I was accurate about it. There's no disputing that now. Bobby Clark acknowledged that I was right, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, like we work on the same team. If you want to know how I know it or you want to know what the story is, call me. And the fact that he tried to make a name for himself with the morning show by being like a narc against what I said and using the old, I called the Flyers, they denied it. It pissed me off. And I come live in a world where I'm vindictive and I have a list. And if you wrong me, I'm going to get you back. And 20 years later, I'm still doing it.
Yeah, why not? All right.
Yeah.
So now, and you, because you're doing a show that's seen nationally, you
Yeah.
obviously just don't talk about Philadelphia sports. But I think yesterday, I think you touched on the Phillies a little bit yesterday. Now, as we speak, they won the third game of their series with the Giants, but they can't hit.
Yeah.
It's just I don't like the lineup. But your thoughts? Let's get down to the Phillies
Yeah.
since we're in that season right now. Your thoughts
Yeah.
on the Phillies?
Well, look, obviously a brutal loss on a walk-off three-run inside the park home
Apart home
run,
run.
which I did get great joy out of. But it's always baseball's so funny to me because I have this theory: every team loses 60 games, every team wins 60 games. The season comes down to the 42 games in between that you choke away or maybe you steal from another team. There are always going to be lulls. The New York Mets went through a bad lull, right? The Phillies have had their moments. The Yankees were like 6-16 and had a horrendous June going into July, and we all do the same thing every year. We overreact to the predictable 2 week, 2.5 week bad baseball losing streak. But look, when it's all said and done, the Phillies are going to be in the postseason. The Mets are going to be in the postseason. The Yankees are going to be in the postseason, and the rest of it's just histrionics, right? So to me, I'm not all that worried about Philly. Obviously, love Zach Wheeler. I loved when he was in New York with the Mets, and I think when it's all said and done, the Philly season's going to be determined in mid-October. They're going to make the playoffs.
You know what? When I look at the team, and there's bad contracts, and there's decent contracts, and there's good contracts, but
Sure.
everybody makes so much money. I don't know if Bryce Harper's contract with after this year, he's got 6 years left. Now,
Yeah.
going into the final game in San Francisco, he was hitting 249. He had 9 home runs. I don't know that he's going to get the 500. I just don't know that he's going to get there. And I contend that right now, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Dave Parker took 20 some years to get in the Hall of Fame. His numbers are so much better than I think Bryce Harper's numbers are going to be. But whatever the case, rather than make a comparison, your thoughts on Bryce Harper? They bowed down to him in Philadelphia. And,
Yeah.
Bryce at one time was a great player. But when
Yeah.
you look, he's only had 2 years where he's had 100 or more RBIs. He's got 300 and I think 46 home runs right now, which is a lot, but it's not anywhere Hall of Fame-ish. Uh, and I don't know because he swings for home runs. It's such a violent swing. I think he hurts himself a lot.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Bryce Harper?
Well, I mean, obviously, love watching him play. One of those rare guys who's lived up to the expectations I thought earlier in his career. When he came out as the phenom. Look, I think he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I'm with you on that. It doesn't help his case that as soon as he left Washington, they won the World Series. Doesn't help his case that he hasn't won the World Series. But I think he's going to be one of those guys when we look back in his career where he's going to be a quote unquote. I hate saying it because it's not fair to him. He's going to be a bit of a compiler. He's going to wind up hitting 400 home runs. And we're going to make the argument, great, when he was 38, he had 25 home runs. But the fact that he got to 400 and maybe beyond, is that enough to get into the Hall of Fame? I think he's borderline. I understand why Philly loves him because he's adopted the city. He's doing cheesesteak reviews. He's, calling into WIP, all those things that, people that do have a say in the Hall of Fame or have a vote are going to fall in love with. The fans obviously fall in love with him because he's like a man of the people. He's doing cooking videos this off season, to try to be, more, blue collar, I suppose, despite the contract. But there's no denying he has been a great baseball player at his best. And at his worst, yeah, he's been disappointing. I've always felt, and this is not about Bryce Harper, in all sports, we've kind of watered down the Hall of Fame in every sport.
Yep.
And to me, that's like it's not an issue. I don't begrudge guys getting in. I never have any ill will. If Joe Blow gets in and we all agree he's not a Hall of Famer, well, now he is. Good for him. Like I don't care. I don't yell and scream at the mountains. Oh my God, I can't believe so and so got into the Hall of Fame. But you can't argue that the Hall of Fame has not been watered down in every sport because it has been. And like I view it this way: if throughout your career there was never a point where we said you are undeniably one of the best players in the game, then you're not a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
and
a
there
way
are
to look
guys
at
that
it.
get in now that were good players, maybe even had 2 or 3 great years, a 50 home run year, 130 RBIs, maybe a 25 win season for a pitcher, 250 strikeouts, whatever it might be. But, for 5 years, were you the best? No, then you're not a Hall of Famer.
And that's a way to look at it. It's just, but they water it down because there's not enough players with the
Yeah. And by
numbers.
the way, but here's the thing: like, how upset would we be as fans? And again, pick your sport. I don't care what the sport is. If one year they're like, guess what, guys? Nobody's getting in.
Well, yeah, and you got to have somebody in there.
But like,
You got
why?
to.
Like that whole you need a minimum of X number of players to get in. Why?
Uh, well, because they got to get people to come to Cooperstown.
Right. I guess.
Why else? Yeah, and the other debate that people have in Philadelphia because people fall in love with their players. I mean, Bryce Harper. I'll use the word pander at times to the fans. He wears the fanatic stuff, all that other kind of stuff. But Jalen Hurts now he won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I think he played really well, but somebody on that defense had to win the MVP award. They were that good in that last Super Bowl. But whatever the case, I'm not taking anything away from Jalen Hurts. But now people say, well, where does he rank among quarterbacks in the NFL?
Yeah.
I won't say what I think so far. I
Yeah.
mean, I think he's gotten better. He's done a good job. Where do you think he
Yeah.
ranks in the NFL?
Somewhere between 8 and 11.
And
He's not top five. We can all
nope.
agree. You can pick your order, but we all have the same five guys in the top five: Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Jackson. They're the obvious four. I guess in theory you could debate the fifth, right? So he's not one of those guys. But I also think, in fairness to Jalen Hurts, who's now been to two Super Bowls and won one and got a Super Bowl MVP, he's probably the most disrespected quarterback nationwide based on the success that he has had. Now, I want to be clear. I am not putting him in the top five, but to discount what he does and what they ask him to do and his ability, I don't think is fair. And I compare him to Brock Purdy in this way. And I'm a big Brock Purdy guy. And it always bothered me that one of the knocks that recently against Brock Purdy, who's been to multiple NFC championship games and a Super Bowl, and obviously lost the championship game to Philly when he got knocked out on the first drive of the game by Hassan Reddick. The I don't like it when people try to rationalize to me why a guy's not good. Like, oh well, no, Jalen's got AJ Brown and he's got Saquon and a great offensive line. Great. Joe Montana played with 8 Hall of Famers. Does that diminish what he did? Troy Aikman didn't have a strong arm, played with 6 Hall of Famers. Does that diminish what he did? And I think Jalen Hurts is he the greatest quarterback? No, he's not. Uh, I think today's the best Eagles quarterback of all time. And I don't think he was as good as Randall or Donovan in his prime, but he has to be regarded now as the greatest Eagle quarterback of all time based on the Super Bowl appearances and the
You know,
Super Bowl win. And
I
for
don't
some
know that I
reason,
agree
people
with that.
disrespect him.
I don't know if I agree with that because I think Donovan, even though he didn't win a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
Donovan's numbers are tremendous. They got
Yep.
to so many conference championship games. They didn't win, and he
Yep.
wasn't good enough. And it was part of it was his fault.
Sure.
But um, I think it's too early to put Jalen as the best Eagle of all time. I still
He'll go
think
when
it's
it's all
Donovan.
said and done. But when it's all said and done, he will be the best Eagle quarterback of all time.
Yeah, and it all comes down to health, and
Yeah.
the teams
Yeah.
got it has to keep on winning. All right, I want to move on to the biggest disaster of a franchise in Philadelphia. I probably don't even have to say who it is for you to know who I'm talking about. It is the
Well,
all-time disgrace of a franchise. Besides the process, which is a stinking joke.
yeah.
It's a process. What was it was a Ponzi scheme. It was disgraceful. But your thoughts? I like the Knicks. I do. I'm
Yeah.
sorry that Thibodeau got fired, but every coach has an expiration date. They all get fired at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was his fault. The players, and they probably need one more player, but they're a good team. What do you think of the 76ers
Oh, I thought you
and
were
the
talking about the.
franchise?
I thought you were talking about the Union. I'm so sorry. I got. Let me. Let me
I'd take the Union over the Sixers.
I'm a diehard Knick fan. I married into a Philly family, as you know. My father-in-law for 40 years was
Yep.
a
Yep.
season ticket holder,
I know your
courtside for the
father-in-law.
Sixers, and
Yep.
one of my best friends in the world used to own the Sixers, and a dear friend of mine now still owns a piece of the Sixers, although a different person. Um, Look, they've never been past the second round of the postseason in this era.
Nope.
So they are the biggest disappointment. I think in all of basketball, considering the talent that they've had. But I would caution you about this, and this is the one thing that has me lay awake at night. Jason Tatum is out for the year with Boston, so they're out.
Yep.
Halliburton's out for the year with the Pacers. They're out. No, I love Kenny Atkinson. I think he's a great coach, but I'm not scared of the Cavs. I just don't think they have the right recipe to make the deep run like they should have as the 1 seed this past year. I know what I'm going to say is sacrilegious to my Knicks fandom because I think the Knicks are a lock, health, prevailing to be in the Eastern Conference Finals this year. I know Orlando's a good up and coming team, but the Knicks are too good not to make a run back at least to the Eastern Conference Finals. The biggest if in all of sports for the next 12 months, if, and I know it ain't going to happen, if the Sixers are healthy, the Sixers can wake up one day and you will see them in the NBA Finals.
Okay. All right. You said something that the if is
I know.
like capital I,
I
capital F.
know.
Joel
I know.
Embiid will never, ever, ever again be healthy in his career.
Well,
And let me just
then
break
that's
the
a wrap.
let me just break the news to you. And I know who you're talking about is your friend, and I love Michael as well. He's a great guy, and he lives and dies and breathes that team. But and Joel Embiid is a fraud, and he's not only he's a very talented player, doesn't listen to the coach, doesn't play hard all the time,
Yeah.
doesn't play for his teammates. He plays for himself, and I don't. And he's hurt all the time. If he plays more than 50 games this year, I would be really
Yeah. Well,
surprised.
you know what happened to him, Howard? And I think, look, I can't prove this. It's just my take on it. I think the worst thing that happened to the Sixers in regards to Embiid and his desire to be a great player was when they gifted him the MVP. Once he got that MVP, it's a wrap. I'm an MVP, which means I'm a Hall of Famer. Um, in his prime, when healthy, no one denies the fact that he was a dominant big man in the league. Obviously, Paul George is another disaster. My only fear is if somehow, some way, that team stays healthy, they could compete and get to an NBA final. I'm with you. No expectation that they're going to be healthy. But the only team in the back of my mind that, if healthy, could derail the Knicks from getting to the NBA finals this year, shockingly, are the Philadelphia 76ers.
All right, let's not forget about Paul George. Mistake to sign him. Daryl Morey
Of
is
course.
is a con man, terrible general manager, has no clue, never won anything. But everybody, oh, Daryl Morey, Daryl Morey. But he signs Paul George to 4 years. The only year out of the last six that he played outside of 50 games, beyond 50 some games a year, was the year he was playing for his contract. Otherwise, he's averaged about 53, 54 games a
Yeah.
year. What
Yeah.
makes you think that's going to change?
Oh, no.
He's got his
Again,
money. He's got his
I don't
money.
think, I'm not predicting it's going to change. I'm just telling you, if you know, if sugar and nuts were wherever the saying, I forget how the saying goes. I had a couple Grand Marniers tonight. Um, um, no, just look. I don't have any expectations that the Sixers are any good, but I want to be ahead of the game on this, so you can go back and go, man, Carton had it right. If the Sixers are healthy, they have a lineup good enough to go to the finals
You know what? I'm rooting for you because that would be the first time that you're right. If you're right,
today. Yeah,
that'll be your first.
yeah.
It's just the Sixers. And the
I'm
owner,
with you.
the owner doesn't care about the Sixers. He cares about his Washington football
Yeah,
team.
well, you better get Terry McLaurin signed up if he cares enough about Washington.
Yeah, well, okay, that too. Hey, Craig, if you look back and you've had some moments in your career, and I've had some moments too,
Yeah,
funny moments, good moments, bad moments, and then we've done kind of the same things in terms of what business we're in. What are you? Do you remember any moments specifically, whether they be good or bad, that or that were really just man, I really hit it on that show, or I really
yeah,
man, that turned into a funny and a funny bit. Uh, it's just can you think back of anything? And you've done so
yeah.
many.
Well, in Philadelphia, the thing that I think changed the trajectory of my career in a good way, um, and you obviously know this. So I get a phone call from a dear friend of mine who happens to be a lawyer in Washington D.C. Only like 2 years older than me. He was good friends with my brother. And he calls me up and he says to me, and I've never told this story publicly, not that it's a big secret, but I've never once told this story publicly. And I get a phone call and he goes, "Are people going crazy?" And I said, "About what?" He goes, "About the fact that Norman Braman is selling the Eagles." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Oh my God, I can't believe I said something." And I go, "No, now you got to tell me everything." So he tells me exactly what's going on. I was I wasn't yet officially covering the Eagles. That led to that. So I call up Harry Gamble at the time. He knew who
Hmm.
I was because I'm on nights with Gary Cobb and WIP. And I said, "Do you have any comment on the fact that Norman Braman is selling the Eagles?" And he said, "I'll have to get back to you on that." So I went in right away to Tom Bigby, and Tom brought Angelo in because he had been a reporter, and they're like, "This is the biggest story in Philadelphia sports history. Are you sure you have it? And I had it all. I knew Jeff Lurie was buying the team. I knew the deal, the amount of money, the whole bit. So they agreed the next morning I would come into the radio station and announce on the morning show that Norman Brayman had agreed to sell the team to Jeffrey Lurie. And that then made me the Eagles guy in town, obviously, as a reporter. That was the biggest thing, career wise, as far as a singular moment that happened to me. But I'll tell you how that came full circle. So I'm now the Eagles guy, right? So this is 94, 95, right?
Right.
So all of a sudden, Tom Shredencheck, the longtime Fox producer at Fox
Well, I
29.
hired Tom at Fox. I was the
Okay.
original when we started doing news.
Yep. Tommy, great guy. He was actually, when I did my tryout show in Philly, when I was living and working in Cleveland, he was my co host for my first tryout show on a weekend in
Oh, how about that?
Philadelphia. So Tom Shredencheck calls me up and he says, listen, Spectrum just hired me to produce an Eagles magazine show. And because you're now kind of synonymous with the Eagles amongst fans, because you broke the biggest Eagles story of all time, we want you to be the host of this Eagles magazine show on Spectrum. Okay. So I'm all pumped up. And he goes, it's going to be great. We're going to film a pilot for it in a couple weeks. So let you know, blah, blah, blah. About a week later, I get a panicked phone call from Tom, and he says, we have a real problem. I'm not sure if you can host the show. Uh, you and Gary did the ugly show a couple days ago, and one of the guys that you said was the ugliest broadcaster you had ever seen was the face of Spectacor, Larry Rosen. You remember him?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Uh,
So they said they're not going to let you host this show on their network until you smooth things over with Larry. So you have to come into an emergency meeting of like the general manager, the producers, and Larry's going to be there. And now look, I'm 22 or 3 years old. I don't give a shit, right?
right.
Let's go. So I'll never forget. I pull into the parking lot. I walk into the meeting. There's all these executives, and Tom's there as well. And they're like, yeah, Craig, like we like you a lot, but we have a problem. He's the face of Spectrum. And you said he's the ugliest guy you've ever seen on television,
Oh
and
my
it's a
God.
problem. So he shows up, 10 minutes late fashionably, and he goes, I want you to tell me to my face that I'm the ugliest guy you've ever seen on TV. And I go, all right, you're the
You
ugliest
did.
guy like I've ever seen on television. I don't know how you got the job.
Oh my, that's unbelievable. You know what?
Okay.
I'm. So did you end up doing it or no?
Oh, so he starts ranting on and on about how many girls he gets on Delaware Avenue and what a Don Juan he is, and he goes, "You need to apologize to me and beg me for the job, or you're not getting the job." And I told him he can go bleep himself, and I walked out and never got the job.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to challenge you on something. You said that was the
Mhm.
biggest Eagle story. It was
Yeah.
before you even got there.
Okay.
I had a story, and I remember it in 1980, and that was 3 months after I started television, still doing some radio, doing television at Channel 3, 1982. Leonard Toast was going to be
Yeah.
forced to
Listen, I'm
sell
just
the
gonna start
Eagles.
my car so I don't pass out from the heat. So hang on.
Okay, all right, you can do that. Uh,
Woohoo!
uh, uh, Leonard Toast was going to be forced to sell the Eagles because of gambling problems in Atlantic City, his debt. And then
Yeah.
he kind of tried to move them to Arizona. And I had that story too. And by putting it out there, it stopped the Eagles from going to Arizona. So I would think at at that time, that was a pretty big story. They could have been in Arizona. They could have been in Arizona if I didn't come out.
Yeah.
It was two parts to that story. So, and Leonard he just gambled
See,
everything
I knew that
away.
I knew I knew the Toes gambling story well. That was well documented. I didn't know the Arizona part of that till right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because he was going to get paid by Arizona to move the team to Arizona, and he needed money. He was broke There was so many different elements of the story. He sold part of the team to an attorney and another financial guy on a napkin in Atlantic City. It's just the whole thing was ridiculous. But all right, so now I want to get into um, your life, which has been different. First of all, I think, I mean, you're to me, you've always been a great guy. I think you're a terrific guy. You're very talented. You're fun to listen to. You're entertaining, which doesn't you don't hear a lot of that anymore in radio today. But you've had some challenges in life. Can you talk about how you've come
Yeah.
back from those challenges?
Yeah. So look, I'm a compulsive gambler. I made really bad decisions centered around my need and desire to gamble and gamble with higher stakes and more time and more time. I was arrested at 3:45 in the morning, leaving my apartment to go in to my morning show on WFAN, and it effectively changed my life forever. Self-inflicted wounds. I blame nobody.
He just froze. Greg, he just froze. This is important. This is important for people to understand. Maybe he can get back on and link himself up. We just lost the feed, but it gives me a chance to go over some of these comments. Radio. Uh, uh, Somebody asked if I'm taking calls Saturday. I'm going to do a show, and I'm going to take calls. Calls you link in on Saturday. Somebody else said I saw, and I forget who it was. Said Embiid is a clown. I wouldn't call him a clown, but I think people have been fooled by Joel Embiid being that guy that works hard. I don't think he'll be ready for the start of the season. So those things are really difficult. Um, it's difficult to win when you have people like that. It's just, yeah. Here it is. It's I forget who it was. Scott said Embiid is a clown. All right. Well, if Craig's there, and it's an important part, I think he's. Joe, is he clicking back in? Um, okay. All right. Craig, are you there? Hello,
Yeah,
Craig.
let me hold on.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of a challenge. It's an important part, and this is one thing I wanted to get into. Can you hear me? Yeah. Try. I guess Joe, try to tell him to try to link up again. I'd love to have him, but I want him to explain that, and I want him to explain how he came through. He was a compulsive gambler, got himself in a lot of trouble that way. But the fact that he's resurrected what he's done, and he's uh, done it very well. He's talented. He understood his mistakes, um, and you need to know that you have a problem. Uh, you need to know you have a problem before you can fix that problem. And Craig is a guy just kind of following his career. He understood it, and he did a great job with it. Craig, are you there? I just don't think it's gonna. Yeah. Uh, yeah, maybe it did. It did. We were living on borrowed time with his phone. Well, his phone, he still has a battery. All right. Let me. I think is he trying again? Uh, uh, yeah. Okay.
You got me?
Yeah. There you go. All right. I want you to get in and explain to people how you came back from what you did. You have to recognize the mistake
Hello.
before you can fix it. Uh, and you obviously recognize the mistake before you fix it. Explain to people what you did to come back and have a productive career. Yeah. Hey, I can. Can you hear me,
Hello.
Craig? Yeah, there you go. Hey, Craig, tell us the story of how you came back from all those
You
issues.
guys got me or no?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Hello.
Yeah, you can't hear me, but I can hear you. I should send him just explain. Just send him a text. Just explain. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm going to call him right now. I really think this is important. Um, uh, uh, 177. I don't want your number. I want you to answer the phone. It's got to see. This is what happens with technology. Uh, Hello, Craig.
Yeah, if you give me
No, no, that's all right. I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to do it on the phone because I think it's important that you explain this. And I put the phone on the air. How did you come back from your issues?
Yeah, well, so can you hear me loud and clear?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, and I apologize for the technical snafu there.
No problem.
The first thing was, dropping my ego and acknowledging that I had a problem.
Yep.
Because for so long, I thought I was God's gift to the world of cards. I traveled with a deck of cards in my back pocket for a year and a half. Legitimately, if you saw me anywhere publicly, I always had a deck of cards in my back pocket. And for a year and a half, I would have claimed a player literally on the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And for a period of time, I might have been. The problem with that is I completely lost the value of money. And for grew up blue collar and worked for $12,000 a year in my first job in radio, and worked 50 grand when I got to Philly. It wasn't like I had money or came from money. And then all of a sudden I'm in a situation where I'm now betting $30,000 a hand of blackjack, and it didn't mean anything. And I'd win and lose millions of dollars, and the money didn't mean anything. And for a year and a half, that's how I lived my life. And I was literally living a double life. And it wasn't until, the poop hit the fan and I got arrested for other things that were associated with gambling and the bad decisions I was making because of gambling and the bad people I started associating with. And once I was able to be honest with myself that I had a problem and I couldn't control it, that day was like being reborn. That was the day where I was able to get my shit back together and start living life the way I always had in a respectable manner. And even though I did wake up one day and figure it out and recognize I had a problem, just because you tell the world, hey, guess what, everybody? I know I've got a gambling problem. Things don't just get better the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud to say that I'm now in recovery without making a single bet of any kind. I feel like I've got it under control. I also know that if I went to a casino with money today, I'm going to bet it all on. So I don't trust myself not to do that. And I've got a great support system around me. But the only way to beat it, the only way to get over the hump and get past the problem of gambling, and I'd imagine this is the same for any addiction, is owning the fact that you've got a problem and knowing that you need other people to step in and guide you through what recovery is. And I've been blessed many times over that once I finally came to my senses and acknowledged I have a problem, that there were people there to support me and help me through it.
Yeah, and you almost lost your family because of that too, which is obviously.
I was estranged from my wife for 3 years. Had my relationship with my kids obviously changed dramatically. And, grace of God or whatever you want to consider your higher power is, I'm very, very lucky, A, that I'm alive, B, that I'm still in the process of rebuilding family relationships, friend relationships, and that I've been given this ridiculous second chance, not just to be back on the fan, but to then go to Fox and rebuild a career. I'm not good at doing anything else, and I know that. And I'm very, very fortunate and very blessed, which is why I do responsible gaming content, both through FanDuel TV, through Fox, and through WFAN, so that I can use my story to counsel other people. And I found in the last 6 to 9 months, I've probably got a dozen or 15 young men between 18 and 23 years old who now are exposed to gambling. It's too much for them, who are going down a bad path. And I get great satisfaction of being able to be a resource for them and their families to help them get through what is now, the worst moments of their lives as well.
You know what? With as easy as it is to gamble on your phones with all these apps, it is really important to have people understand you can't keep on chasing that money, and you lose a little bit, and you start chasing it, and then you're really buried. And I just
Look, you're not going to win money betting parlays, right? You're just
yeah,
not. Like,
no,
if you lose, if you handicap the game and at the 1 o'clock slate and you lose, and now you bet a game you know nothing about, like, why would you think suddenly you're going to win that game, right?
yep,
And the biggest problem you have now with younger kids, especially kids under 21, there's a lot of dads listening to you right now who think one of the great ways to bond with their sons is because they're all sports fans. The dad opens up a legal account and lets the son gamble through his account. And it's one of the biggest problems we have now in the world of gambling because the kid never experienced what it's like to lose because the dad pays the bill, right?
yep,
Then the dad's going to work. He's got responsibilities. So a lot of these kids are now home. Their buddies are all gambling. They have access to an account. The dad's not paying attention during the week because he's working, and these kids are getting themselves jammed up, and it's a problem.
yeah. Craig, it's a great story to try to help people, and the fact that you're doing it, you actually, it was great that somebody or something or whatever caught you in time to resurrect a terrific career. People like you, your talent doesn't come around that often anymore in our business in sports talk radio or television. Doesn't come around that much anymore. And there's so many people
Well,
on the air.
it's funny you say that real quick. So I'll never forget when I got out of prison, and 4 months later, when the fan agreed to hire me back, not the same show mornings, but to do afternoons, we did a 1 hour special, like a commercial free 1 hour special for me to return to the airwaves and kind of say what I needed to say to the audience that had been very loyal to me that I kind of turned my back on for gambling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was very contrite. It was very emotional. And one of the pieces of advice I got was, this is a very important hour of broadcasting you're about to do. People are also going to want to know that they're getting the same Craig Carton that they fell in love with on the radio in mornings. So don't lose that side of you as a broadcaster. And I'll never forget, at the very end of the show, because there were a lot of people in our industry that obviously were upset that I was being given this second chance because they felt like, they should do afternoons at WFAN.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I said was, and I can kind of leave you with this, I said, listen, I've been gone from the radio station for 3 years. The fact that you haven't gotten any better at what you do is not my fault.
It's a great point. It's you know what, I'm not going to. I'm going to compliment you, and I know what I've accomplished in the business. And it's a shame that people just think that they can just go on the air, turn on the microphone, and everything's like, "Oh, this is going to be great. This is going to be great." And you talk about bullshit, and it's bad bullshit. It's not the same, but I love you. I really do. I love you as a human being. I love the fact that you came back and you got your life together. I know your wife, and I'm glad that you guys are back together again. And I'm happy for all you guys, and I'm happy for you. And we can't lose guys like you on the air because you're one of the talented ones. That's the whole thing. You're one of the talented ones.
I appreciate it, and I'll say this: I take great pride in the craft, and I love doing it. And you never know, maybe I'll be back on the radio one day as well, because I'm a radio guy at heart. And I appreciate you, of course, your friendship, and I look forward to doing more of these with you in the future. And I appreciate you having me on.
I love it. And for people that want to see you in the morning, FS1 breakfast ball. I can tell you, I think it's channel 221 on Direct TV. I don't know where it is on your Comcast, but I know it. I know it by heart. But Craig, thanks so much, and good luck. And I love it. We finish it up in style, brother. We can do it whenever. We can.
Next time I'll do it from a studio, not my phone in a car near a restaurant.
Well,
Sorry about that.
wait a minute. We could do it with on a string and tin cans. What's the difference?
All good.
All right.
Be good. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care, Craig. Thanks. Craig Carton. We had to finish it up on the phone. And it's good, but I wanted to get that story in. I think it's important. His story is really important, and it's important for a lot of people. All right. Let me thank again our presenting sponsor. I don't even call him. I've actually become friend. I try to become friends with a lot of the people that I do, and I call it business, but it's a partnership. And Jeff Stillwell is a super guy who knows his stuff. Anything that deals with wealth, Stillwell Financial Advisors, he can really help you get it done. Just give him a call, see what he has to say. 732-343-0813. And I want to talk about my other partners, my partners on the Howard Eskin Show, and that would be Audi Westchester is one of them. Audi Westchester, right now you can lease a new 2025 Audi A3 Quattro. You know, for $430, let me just tell you the numbers here. $439 a month, or a new 2025 Audi A5 Sportback for only $529 a month. All you need is $2,500 down plus taxes and registration fees. And for 36 months, 7,500 miles a year. Here's the thing. When you go to look for an automobile and look for a car, don't you have fun? It's fun looking for a car. Don't we have fun looking for a car? Oh, this car's cool. This car's cool. The dealership has a ton of friendly people. You'll find you're going to have fun at Audi Westchester, 1421 Wilmington Pike. I mean, check it out. All I'm telling you is check it out, AudiWestchester.com. And it's late to kind of build a pool, but you could start thinking about it. And that doesn't mean you can't start thinking about it. Maybe in a month or so, you get ready. So next year will be more fun than you had this year, but they can still do it right now. And that would be they being Piazza Property Pros, people that know, they really know their stuff. And they are 25 years experience tells you what you need to know about the experts at Piazza Property Pros, whether it's excavation, hardscaping, fencing, landscaping, pool maintenance. Trust Piazza Property Pros, exceptional results. They'll work within your budget. Here's a number. Call for a free consultation, 610-566-2608, or check it out, piazzaoutdoor.com. And if you want to save money on your cable, and who doesn't? You do, and you do. Yep, you're overpaying for cable? Then have Cut the Cord with Jason come over and take care of business for you and save you money on your monthly TV and internet bills. Here's what people who hire Jason had to say. And Mike L says, I saw Cut the Cord with Jason on Howard Eskin Show. After years of wanting to get rid of cable TV, I finally did it. Jason came to my house, explained everything, set up the home screen to what we needed, and even hooked up my sound bar in the basement. Jason was awesome. And that's Mike L from the Northeast. So you want to cut the cord with Jason? Here's a number, 215, save you lots of money, 215-801-5858. That's 215-801-5858. I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and then I'm going to give you the question. First of all, let me tell you who won on our last show, and we took a week off on our last show, won the Chickies and Pete's gift certificate. Ernie Morris, and the question was my top 3 coaches all time, and Ernie was one of the people that answered the question correctly. Now I forget what I said, but I know I had Andy Reid number 1, Chuck Noll number 3, and I think I had Tom Landry number 2 all time. But whatever, Ernie got it right, and he won the gift certificate for Chickies and Pete's. Now the question today. Well, first of all, let me just tell you, let me promote Saturday's show. People want to call in. That's what I'm going to do on Saturday. I'm going to have your calls. And here's a question, because it became big news in the last couple of days when I did a podcast for somebody else. We talked to Craig about it a little bit. Sports Talk Radio, what you think of it today, what you think of Bryce Harper. And I know in the final game against San Francisco, he had a good game, but he's not having a good year. I don't pay any attention to the NBA Summer League because it's a bunch of high school players playing playing with some good players, which means nothing. Means nothing. And I'm going to get into the odds, the football odds, which I picked them up. I was at the Borgata and I picked them up, and I'm going to run down some of those. We're going to do all that on Saturday. But here's the question. So many things that Craig said, and there's some important things, but let's just deal with the sports part of it. I asked him where he ranks Jalen Hurts in quarterbacks in the NFL. I asked Craig Carton where he ranks. He had him between a certain number and a certain number. If you think you know the answer, and you can go back if you missed part of the show, a podcast lives forever. That's what's great about podcasts. When we do, they live forever. It's like on radio nowadays, when they have commercials, if they podcast or show, those commercials come out, they resell them. That's their business model. Our commercials live forever. Our shows live forever. And people go back and listen to the shows. And that's what I like about it. It's just podcasts are the new media. That's where we're going. And you can enjoy this show. If you miss part of it, you can go back and listen to it. But you got the question where Craig Carton ranked Jalen Hurts between who and who, or what number and what number of quarterbacks in the NFL. And if you missed part of it, you can go back and listen to the show. By the way, if you subscribe on YouTube, and we're on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. But if you subscribe to YouTube, you get an alert when I do the show live, and the show is always easy to find. So you can find it that way on YouTube. But submit your answer to my website, howardeskin.com. And out of the correct answers will come up at random a winner. Thanks to Craig Carton. Thanks to you for being a part of the Howard Eskin Show. Always have fun doing it. And, it's what I do. I love to talk to you. And we're going to talk on Saturday. And I see a lot of these, a lot of people did like Craig on the show. I'm looking at some of the, look at some of the comments. Thanks, James. Another great show. Is what James says. The crown means that you are top fan of the show. Great stuff from Tony. Tony says great stuff, but there's a lot of comments here, and we'll get into your comments on Saturday on the show. And we're going to go live at 8 o'clock. But if you want to re-listen to the shows, they're always there for you. Thanks, and have a great night.